That it's a pleasure to introduce our next speaker. I saw that she already joined the call. For now on, we will talk for the next 30 minutes about trust services and eID in the context of eIDAS 2 in 2022 and beyond. And for that, we have Evgenia Nikolouzou on stage. She's the cybersecurity officer at ENISA, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today, and the stage is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, y'all. Thanks for inviting ENISA, the EU Cybersecurity Agency, in this virtual conference, which that is here for many years. So let me share my presentation in order to start with, and I will try to be on time. My name is Evgenia Nikolouzou, and I am working at ENISA the last 6 years. And it's my pleasure to present the activities of the EU Cybersecurity Agency in the eIDAS Summit. So let me go ahead. This is, let's say, the agenda of this presentation, which I try to keep it in 20 minutes. So what is the policy content for ENISA? Why ENISA is in the eIDAS? Why the security of trust services is so important? Also, we will talk about the ENISA vision in the eIDAS, which also involve trust services and the eID for the next 3 years. What are the main amendments under the eIDAS 2 that have an impact on cybersecurity, and that's where ENISA enters? And what are the cybersecurity requirements for trust services and the eID part, which are two parts of the eIDAS with a different governance, let's say, layer. So let me continue. So in overall, sorry, just to go back. So in overall, so ENISA has been in front line of the eIDAS since 2014, providing technical capacity and advice for the implementation of the eIDAS, particularly in the area of trust services. As most of you know, ENISA is not drafting legislation like the Commission, but helping the different stakeholders, the member states, the trust providers, the conformity assessment providers in the eIDAS ecosystem to implement the articles of the eIDAS where they're not specific implementing act published, like initiation, supervision, and termination of trust services. So what are the main legislative texts that gives the capacity to ENISA to enter in this eIDAS ecosystem? So ENISA has a big role, of course, under the CSA Act, Article 5, is the Cybersecurity Act published in June 2019 to support the development and implementation of union policy in the field of electronic identity and trust services, particularly providing advice, issuing technical guidance, and of course, one of the main things is to facilitate the exchange of best practices between the competent authorities, the supervisory bodies, as they are defined in the eIDAS regulations. Another part of legislation which has a big impact for ENISA is regulation of the eIDAS that you already know, particularly Article 19, which is the incident reporting on trust services. So support member states with supervision and security measures, support member states with incident reporting and cross-border notifications, annual reports on trust services incident. You can go to ENISA website and find each year an incident report on the trust services part. This is done with the help of a tool. It's called the Serious Tool for Instant Reporting by the member states and analysis. And of course, now ENISA is also working to employ the same tool and the same procedure on the other part of the eIDAS regulations, on the eIDs, and with the support and cooperation with the eIDAS Cooperation Network. Another piece of legislative text that has a big role is under the NIS Directive 2. ENISA will support the interplay between NIS 2 and eIDAS by providing guidance to supervisory bodies and the trust service providers for a smooth transition. And of course, the whole eIDAS 2 package. First, the proposal. As you know, the Commission proposes to amend the existing regulations mainly by establishing a framework for European digital identity and making several other changes to current eIDAS regulations. And of course, the toolbox recommendations, asking the European Union member states to develop a common union toolbox for a coordinated approach towards a European digital identity framework. So this is the policy context that ENISA comes into to have a role to play and providing technical advice and guidelines. So why is so important the security part? Because this is where ENISA enters. What is, let's say, the history behind it? So why we should pay more attention? Of course, all of you know about the digital breach, which lacks of security at the Dutch Certificate Authority, resulting in eavesdropping of citizens in Iran. It resulted in a market failure, and users have to accept whatever certificate was chosen by websites. There was an impact in the EU. For example, 1 week of a government outage in Netherlands had an impact with revocation across the globe. And of course, this breach and other breaches are a driver for a legislative text to come, like eIDAS and NIS directive. So since 2011, where the breach took place, CAs and browsers have significantly improved their security practices and have changed the way of their day-to-day operation. Another thing we should keep in mind is authentication is a pillar of cybersecurity. So there are currently many other issues like vulnerabilities, like patching, like security updates, but it has been proven that authentication and authorizations will eventually become the front line. So it's not only about authenticating that user, but there are also other attacks like phishing or spamming. So another cornerstone of this ecosystem of how the trust services were built, which also the digital wallet will be based on, is the website certificates, which are the cornerstone of online security. Certificate authorities are the first security companies. So this is the first companies that have taken security aspects seriously into their everyday operations. So a breach of web certificates can have major impact, like the digital example. But web certificates are often issued outside the EU, so it's hard to supervise. So let's continue on this, let's say, chapter. So what it should also receive our full attention is the non-qualified certificate, which is not specifically supervised and governed. So this required a close collaboration with industry, the CAP Forum, requires close collaboration with national research and other sectors. And of course, another area that comes into play and will be a front runner is the eID and the wallets, which are digitalization enablers in all sectors. And last but not least, let's not forget the digital transformations in the age of COVID, where the internet traffic in some countries is increased up to 60% shortly after the outbreak. The COVID crisis has accelerated the digitization of customers' infrastructure by 7 years and increased the spending on data security, taking into account the new trend of teleworking. And of course, as the previous speakers have also said, remote identification and authentications based on the new needs and the new business model are on the peak and should really we should put our attention on this. So let's move on. So what is the ENISA vision the next 3 years? So this is the 3 milestones. This is the 3 pillars that we will base our work on. So first, to support the EU digital identity and the digital wallet process. So support the digital identities, the wallets, and the eIDAS cooperation network. The second pillar is to integrate the eIDAS trust services in the NIS2. So we support ENISA Article 19 expert group. It soon to be renamed ECATS, and it's the group of supervisory bodies. Continue and further build up the synergies with FESA, which is the Forum of European Supervisory Bodies, and of course bridge with the NIS Cooperation Group and leverage the full NIS ecosystem. This is really important in the years to come when the NIS2 will be finalized, and the interplay with the eIDAS2 will be a really difficult job to be taken into account, particularly from the stakeholders that we implemented, like the trust services providers. And of course, the third pillar is to promote industry good practices of trust services and the eID part, build on the success of the Trust Services Forum, which this year will be the 8th edition, identify, collect, and develop good practices for industry and collaborate with industry initiatives, forums, and bodies. So let's move on. and see what in all those years, what were the ENISA activities, because as I said before, ENISA is into display since 2014 that the eIDAS regulation was adopted. So the support is very ambitious. So ENISA is building on this. In 2015, the ENISA Article 19 expert group was established. In 2016, the ENISA SIRAS tool was developed. And since 2019, the Cybersecurity Act took place. We also support the eID part, and since last year, the digital wallets. I will not go into many details. You can go to our website and see all the reports we have published on trust services, and the last 3 years also on the eID part. Just to sum up, we have published about 12 reports to support trust services provider and supervisory bodies, 5 reports to support the relying parties. The tool, as I have said before, we provide the Secretariat of Article 19 expert group, and we also host and arrange all those meetings. An area which attracts a lot of the attention lately is the remote identifications. We have published 2 reports on this area. First, it was a full landscape of remote identity proofing in Europe. What is the legislations? What are the standardization efforts? What is the current practices in the trust service providers? And this report was, let's say, the first foundations to build on the next report for remote identity proofing attacks and countermeasures, where a workshop took place last year for this report. And we had the pleasure to have a second workshop on the same topic this May in Munich, which attracted a lot of interest. So ENISA has a role to play in different areas, in different expert groups, organizing forum workshops, and also collaborating with all the tools of the European Commission, the eIDAS expert group, the eIDAS cooperation network, and of course the NIS cooperation group. So now moving on eIDAS 2, what ENISA is most concerned on this legal text, it's let's say, what are the main amendments? So what are the main amendments that has a cybersecurity impact? So it's the framework, the toolbox, as already been explained. And of course, a lot of importance is the certifications of European digital identity wallets and of electronic identification schemes under the CSA, the Cybersecurity Act, where ENISA is asked to play a role. Another area with a lot of attention is the harmonized approach to trust, security, and interoperability through standards. So there are many articles which refer to implementing acts and ask for standards. Of course, ENISA will further support by providing guidance and technical recommendations on the new 3 qualified trust services that introduced in the regulations. And of course, it will help the alignment of the trust service provisions with the rules applicable to NIS and the specific articles that calls for security measures. Let's say these are the main driving forces from ENISA, from the eIDAS 2, and that have an impact on cybersecurity. And of course, having a glance into these ambitions and highly demanding process that was issued by the European Commission, the toolbox. So it was a very ambitious and really aggressive timeline. So from the one hand, we have the eIDAS 2, the legal text, and from the other hand, we have the recommendation of the toolbox that was kicked off last September. This June, it will issue the technical architecture standards and guidelines. There will also a text published in February for public review. This toolbox sets the framework for the member states to work together in close collaboration with the Commission. Everybody is involved somehow in this process, which is very appealing, very attracting, and has a really ambitious goal to improve the citizens' access to highly trusted and secure electronic identity means and trust services, and expand citizen possibilities. Will enable the citizens and residents to access services online without a force to have private identifications methods or unnecessarily sharing personal data. So with these solutions, the citizens will have control of the data they share or grant access to. ENISA, just to sum up in this slide, more focus on working group 2 and the working group 4 by providing guidance on the assets, risks, and threats on the wallets procedure. So if I continue, so here we see, this is the last slide before I close, and just inform you about the forum. As you know, in the eIDAS regulations, we have two parts: the trust services, which now will have an interplay with the NIS2, and from the other side, the eID and the wallets under eIDAS and eIDAS 2. They call for different collaborations, for different governance. From the other side, we have assess risk and take appropriate security measures, and the other is an eIDAS cooperation network. You can see the details here, but what I would like to sum up is that there are things in common. So these two different, let's say, worlds, which are differently supervised. We can see that often and increasingly a national eID is composed of one or more trust services. And often, as we will see in the future, cyber attacks targeting trust services are also relevant for the eID schemes. And if in the future, an attack on the one part will have an impact on the other part. And that's why ENISA aims to support also the incident reporting in both parts, both in the eID part and the trust services part, so that providers are each one know of the incident, and the member states, of course, get cross-border notifications in order to analyze the threats and have a foresight. So closing this presentation, I just would like also to inform you about the ENISA Trust Services Forum that will take place October, followed by the CA Day on the 27th and 28th of October, is the 8th editions. We are aiming at a physical event. Of course, it will be hybrid, but after some 2 years that we're constrained to have 20 or 30 people, we really hope we have 200 people in this room, because we would like to have fruitful collaborations and discussions, and we're really looking forward to. So I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present in eIDAS Summit. Please, if there are any questions, I'm here to discuss whatever is needed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Evgenia, and also thank you for passing over this invitation. I guess everyone, especially when the sun is coming out here in Berlin, is thrilled to meet people in real life again. So yeah, exactly. Hopefully we keep our fingers crossed that this will be possible in October and we will see each other again. And you just said that we have around 5 more minutes left. So if there are any questions from the audience, feel free. Or any comments, or really anything you would like to have Evgenia comment on that, please feel free to use our chat. All these sessions will be recorded, so also if you're interested, or if you have colleagues who are interested, feel free to go back to these slides, to go back into the details and check out all the reports and the things Evgenia talked about. And as I'm currently not seeing any questions in the chat, I do have a follow-up question. So eIDAS 2 is considered to be an improvement of the existing regulations. So what, from your perspective, is still missing for this to be a fully harmonized approach and for more cooperation between all entities of the trust service sector? You talked a bit about harmonization. So how can we improve that? And maybe what initiatives from your point of view are of particular importance here?
Yeah. Through all those reports in the past, we have taken some initiatives, and of course there are many to be taking. For example, harmonized auditing across the member states and across the conformity assessment bodies. We have heard from the market that it's a must go. Another area, that, of course, that looks a lot and striking for attention is the qualified website authentication certificates. Under the eIDAS 2, now it asks for the browsers to recognize those certificates. So it's another area that needs to be harmonized, and so eIDAS goes global and be accepted not only in the European market, but also in the global market. And of course, the governance model that will be followed under the eIDAS and the NIS2 for the two different parts of the regulations also needs harmonization, since at the end there may be providers providing the same service. So a provider that gives trust services and not digital identity, or a provider that gives both services, should be provide them in a secure way and audit it in the same way. So security, I guess it's a must go on and should be taken into account seriously, yes.
Thank you very much. And maybe looking at what's currently up on your slide, the forum in October, maybe you can dive a bit into what kind of topics we might discuss when it's a couple of months later, what will we be looking at in October when it comes to these discussions?
Look, we had the chance that this week in Berlin, it will be a full week of discussions because at the same time, this week will be the next CAP forum. All the browsers will be in Berlin this week. Also, all the conformity assessment bodies will be in Berlin this week. So it will be a good chance first to discuss about the quacks. I mean, how it's perceived by the browsers, what's the reaction from the European Commission, how mature the market is. And of course, the second topic, which attracts a lot of interest these days, is digital wallets. How will be the current state of the art of this time? There's some large-scale projects to see what is the current state of art, how mature are the member states, because all the member states, many of them have different wallets environment to be harmonized. So these two topics are the driving ones, and let's see, more will follow. We are we're now in the stage to develop the agenda and to see what are the emerging topics to be discussed. And of course, remote identity proofing, as is also in the chat. We aim maybe next year to also have dedicated workshops. It attract a lot of attention. We only had 450 people online only for this workshop, that we didn't thought that will attract that much attention, but we see that it's a topic that really it's at this time at the peak.
Thank you very much for this outlook. So I guess there's lots to talk about there, especially when we look at harmonization. Lots to talk about and many discussions we can have within the different member states and also trying to bring this all together. So thank you very much for taking your time, for giving us some insights into what you do and what your view on the future is. We're excited to meet you in October back at the ENISA Trust Services Forum. And again, if anyone from the audience has questions, feel free to pop them on Twitter using eIDAS22 or hashtag, or also, again, feel free to reach out to our speakers on Swapcard or event platform afterwards. It was great having you here. Thank you very much.
Conversations with the corresponding supervisory body. So this is the currently relatively and very complex landscape on remote ID proofing and digital identity. What we will be seeing coming up in the future is the architecture and reference framework on EU digital identity. But as you've heard earlier today, this is something that is in the making and currently under construction. So 2023, 2024, this is saying we'll be seeing this maturing to a higher level. And so the solution that you are selecting today, whether it's from a trust service provider or whether it's from a signature workflow orchestration provider, should have these developments of the upcoming European digital identity wallet already also in place, so that you have a future-proof system and not just something that was maybe created in India or in the US without that development in mind. For those that want to dive into the basics of electronic signatures, we've just created a white paper that we've widely extended now for the German market and for the Austrian market. It'll be on my plate to deliver something for the international European market in English language coming up sometimes later this year. If you would like to have a little bit of reading in order to dive into that segment, maybe also as a primer to share with your peers, feel free to reach out either via Swapcard, via email, or any other tools like LinkedIn, Xing, or Twitter. And so as we had this as a presentation, there is also the option to really meet us and have a conversation in the Meet the Speaker section. So for 2 o'clock now, you are spoiled with 5 choices. And one of those 5 choices is actually to meet the speaker, meet Adrian, Klaus, and Antonio and myself in the Meet the Speaker section, where we will be looking into your questions and provide you with some answers. So I think, Kim, that wraps up this session for right now. And so you might want to have the closure words for the session and pass over to the next person on the international stage.
Great, I will do that. You already did the Meet the Speaker introduction. So again, for everyone who's interested to join the conversation afterwards, feel free to join Jörg, Klaus, Adrian, and Antonio for a more individual one-on-one Q&A. He just has the explanation on screen, and you'll also find the link to that in the chat. So if you want to join that, feel free to join the group. And having said that, a big thank you to Jörg, Klaus, Adrian, and Antonio for not only sharing your insight, but also for bringing in a very practical presentation. I guess everyone is looking forward to get the slide deck and to click on these links to explore the videos, because I guess this all makes it a bit more tangible.